Next up on the number one tee.
Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori, and today we have Colorado Hall of Famer Kimberly Eaton back to join us, fill us in on her golf updates. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Tori.
In case you don't know, Kim is a little more active on Instagram lately. So if you want a backstage pass of Kimberly Eaton on a more daily basis, she's there. She's available to you.
Yes, doing my tequila shots.
Yeah. We have Sue O'Connor here, master club fitter from Cool Clubs. Hi, Sue.
Hey, Tori, how are you?
Have you dipped into Kim's Instagram feed yet?
No, I'm not a social media kind of person.
You're not?
No, I don't go there.
All right. Well, that's fine. Sue, I am so glad you're here because having a female club fitter is not common.
No, it's not at all. There's not a lot in the industry.
How'd you get started in club fitting?
Actually, by accident. Yeah. I was living in Chicago, in the place that I practiced. There was a number of teachers there, and there was a club fitter there, and he happened to live right on my route back and forth to work every day, and he would go fit people for clubs, and then when the clubs were ready to be delivered back to the owner, he would give them to me, and I would take them to the range next time I was hitting. And I noticed a couple times there was the same driver head, but a different shaft. So I started asking him questions about that. And eventually he got too big and he needed some help. And he called me up and he said, would you be interested? And I said, wow, that sounds really cool. So I ended up in club fitting.
How long ago was that?
That was 24 years ago.
And do you love it?
I absolutely love it. It's the best job on the planet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Well, we're going to dive into club fitting here and questions and what it's all about and really what I see common threads through women and their responses to club fitting. And I want to talk about all of them as far as price. They don't think they're good enough. They need to be more consistent, all of that. But first, let's talk about what's going on in the golf game. Sue, how'd you start playing golf?
Purely by accident.
Wow.
Purely by accident.
I think everything in her life is accidental.
It is.
It's fate.
My husband was a golfer.
Wait a second. Husband? I've never heard that term before.
I used to be married.
Yeah, so but husband. I love that.
Was
That's
my
funny.
husband. He worked at a place where the owner belonged to 5 country clubs and played about 250 rounds a year and took employees and spouses golfing all over the world. And the owner actually walked up to me one day and said, you're a good athlete. You'd be good at this. And I said, golf? Why would I want to do that? And then my husband came home that night and said, well, I put you in golf school. And I said, golf school? How are you going to learn a sport sitting at a desk looking at a chalkboard? And he said, no. That's not what golf school is. You actually go out and hit balls. I said, fine, I'm not doing anything that week. I'll go. So I went and the bug bit and that was it.
And how long ago was that?
That was about 30 years ago.
And what's your journey been like?
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing with golf is you meet the most fascinating people on the planet.
Yeah.
Everybody's interesting. And the fact that the game has sort of one set of rules and everybody follows it, it's a great game. And it makes for so much fun and so much fun time.
Do you have fun all the time playing golf?
I would say 99% of the time.
Wow.
No.
Yes. Every once in a while, there's that putt that you miss.
I'm saying no for me.
I know. No, I believe Sue that she's saying no. Kim's saying no for her, and I'd actually say no for me too. So you are inspiring me, Sue. So you're saying 99% of the rounds you go out and play, you are having a blast.
Yeah. I mean, every day on the golf course is a bonus day.
Yeah. No,
How
that
can
is
you
true.
not enjoy it?
That is true.
And
I know.
Even when you get paired with a bachelor party of drunks, I mean, there's still
fun.
some fun in it.
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to segue into a conversation because we were just having this right before we went on, is So the Dallas Shootout is in October. Okay. So, and it overlaps with the LNGA Senior Championship. Okay.
And Mid-Am Championship.
Yeah. And so usually Kim would be at the Dallas Shootout, taking her tequila shots, whooping it up with the ladies. I mean, we have had some amazing fun times. Okay.
They've got me to do things that I typically wouldn't do.
But this LNGA Senior Championship is it's an important tournament for Kim. It's one of the biggest tournaments of the year. We can say it's considered a championship. So what were you saying about going to the Dallas Shootout?
Well, it definitely would be more fun, but the LNGA is more prestigious if you do well. And I don't know if I'm going to go, because if my golf game doesn't improve in the next month or so,
yeah,
then I probably won't waste the money to go to Texas.
And one piece, don't forget here, the LNGA has always been very supportive of women's amateur golf. So it's great to support the organizations that have supported us.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, the LNGA used to be the Trans Miss. Mm-hmm. So they've been around forever. I mean, I remember playing like in 81 in their championship, even probably earlier than that. It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah. So, and that's a really good point though, Sue, is to support these championships and organizations. My thought is, because I am too struggling right now. Golf is very hard right now. So sometimes when it gets hard, it's not as much fun, because for me, I get to a point where, not every round is, your lowest score ever by any means. And I understand that, but there comes a point where it turns and it feels out of control.
But that's where you need to reframe your thinking.
I know.
Because challenge yourself to see how well you can do with what you brought that day.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you don't have your draw that draws predictably 5 yards every time. Mm-hmm. But see what you can do. Mm-hmm. See what you can make that little white ball do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously the thought of the Dallas Shootout overlapping with the LNGA wasn't the goal by any means. They totally switched up their schedule and it just kind of happened by accident. But it's just funny how we choose, like Kim knows she'll have a really good time. I mean, I know she'll have such a good time at the Dallas Shootout. And it is a different type of tournament. It's a real tournament, but it's not, you're
serious.
Not going to have it's not serious. You're not having the competition level that you're used to. But we choose different events. It's just an interesting thing. Where Sue's saying she's having fun 99% of the time. And you are nodding your head, no, that's not the case for you. But then you're choosing, okay, I'm going to go play at the big championship instead of going somewhere where I know I'm going to actually really have a good time. It's just interesting. And I get it, because I think I'd make the same decision. So I'm struggling right now. So I'm almost thinking like I do need to kind of go back to where golf is fun again, or golf is less pressure. Golf is, just enjoy the people, just enjoy the experience, enjoy the course.
Well, I look at it too from the standpoint is that I'm not getting any younger. So there's not going to be a whole lot more years where I can compete at maybe the highest level. And then the fun golf will come in more than that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But right now, I think I can still compete.
You can.
Well, and
without a doubt.
Don't forget to keep the game of golf. Think about the scope. Think of what's going on in your life and what's going on in the world. And after all, this is a sport. This is a game. So have a perspective that appreciates the fact that it's a game. And you know what? I'd rather be out on the golf course playing poorly than doing a few other things that you might be forced to do. Yeah. I mean, it just keep the perspective of life and how the game fits in. And I think that's a very easy way to enjoy it when you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yes, having perspective, being grateful, enjoying everything that there is about golf. That's truly spectacular. It's just sometimes it gets in your head a little too much.
It does.
But you do have to be reminded, which I'm so glad you're here telling me this today. Like, you have to be reminded sometime, like, take it down a notch. Like,
Yeah.
Like, your life is pretty darn good.
It's a game.
Yeah.
And the next par 3, you might have a hole in one. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
And remember...
I have no luck at all for
Oh,
hole-in-ones.
God.
The only luck that I have, and how many times have I said this? What's the only luck that I've ever had?
Your wife, Pat.
Thank you.
Well, and you were pretty lucky to snag her up. I have to agree with that.
Especially after this morning.
Oh, boy. Well, you know what? That's a whole different podcast episode.
No, it's not. I just left my chapstick in my dirty laundry.
Is Pat in charge of doing all the laundry?
Oh, yeah, she won't even let me touch it.
Yeah. I mean, I won't let Casey touch it either.
But I think I'm going to get... she may start making me do my own laundry if I keep putting my chapstick in it.
All right, Sue, let's get into club fitting. Okay, so again, you are a master club fitter at Cool Clubs. Tell us about that business. Like, who is it for? What kind of place is it? Like, what is the atmosphere like at Cool Clubs?
Well, club fitting is for anybody. You don't have to be a low handicapper. You don't have to be a pro player. Getting the right clubs in your bag can make all the difference in the world. And you can enjoy the game better when the clubs fit you properly for your swing speed and your skill level. And just because you're allowed 14 clubs doesn't mean you have to carry 14. Mm-hmm. It depends on your skill level and it depends on your speed. And Cool Clubs it's a great place to work. All the fitters there love their job. I mean, none of us would rather be doing something else.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
But this is a place, it's not on a golf course. So it is a place where you go into actually inside to a building and there's stalls that you get fitted at and you have all brands there. You're not unique to just one brand.
Right. And we do we're available for fittings inside. We do have inside bays, but we also work outside.
Okay.
We are at a couple outdoor locations locally, and then we have some other locations throughout the country. But you can get fit inside or outside in Arizona. We don't go outside in the summer because the computers, frankly, can't take the heat. Mm-hmm. And we're brand agnostic. We fit a number of different brands and a number of different shafts. And what we do, for example, if you came in for a driver fitting, we would have you hit your driver, collect data on TrackMan, and then put different heads and shafts in your hands and figure out what head and shaft combination works best for you. And we're data driven. So we know what equipment is the best for you.
Mm-hmm. So even if someone comes in and says, okay, I want to get the new TaylorMade or Titleist or Callaway driver, they feel like they have something in mind. They could start hitting multiple different combinations.
Right.
With different club heads, different shafts, and come out with something that they never even realized just based on the data.
Right. And we'll put you in what you want to see.
Yeah.
And then we'll just look at the data.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter to me whether you buy a TaylorMade, a Callaway, a Titleist. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. I just look at the numbers and whatever works the best for you, that's what I suggest for you for a club. And just because you have, say, a TaylorMade driver doesn't mean you'll have TaylorMade fairway woods or TaylorMade hybrids. You might have a TaylorMade driver and Titleist fairway woods and Callaway hybrids and Titleist irons. Who knows?
Yeah, that's very common. Do you have a mixed bag, Kim?
No, the only thing that's really mixed in my bag are my wedges.
Yeah. What kind of wedges do you use?
Well, I have a Cleveland sand wedge, and then I have a new Titleist Vokey lob wedge that I love. I don't know if I've ever played Titleist wedges before.
Did you win that wedge?
No, I didn't. I went and I had bought another Callaway lob wedge, and you have to realize when I play golf, it's all about feel and looks. So I don't know a lot about shafts and bounce on like sand wedges and all this kind of stuff. I just look at something, and if I like it, then I get it. Well, I bought this new Cleveland wedge, and I think it had too much bounce because I couldn't hit it very well. And so I then looked at this Titleist wedge and thought, this looks good.
Wait, I have a question here. When you say you couldn't hit it well, I've seen you hit the golf ball. What does not hitting it well mean for you?
Well, I I maybe chunked this wedge a lot. I just didn't feel comfortable, like I could finesse it or hit it. It just didn't feel good. And so I'm telling you, I'm a totally feel player.
Which is fine.
Because people have asked me before, like we'll be playing and they'll go, well, what kind of grass is this? And I'm like,
green.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of grass it is. I just play. Well, you played the tour. I said, no, I didn't play the tour. I played the mini tour, yeah, but I just don't get into all this technical stuff. I just go out and hit that little white ball.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think everyone's spectrum of how technical they are it's different, Yes. I have some friends that are super technical, numbers driven. They're switching out their shafts and doing all kinds of things all the time. And then you have Kim, who's totally based on looks and feel. And that's fine. It's fine. So for club fitting, let's get down to the super basic though. So someone wants to get fitted for clubs. What do they say when they call up a place like Cool Clubs? What do you say when you call in?
Well, we find out what part of the bag they want to do, because there's different options. Mm-hmm. Driver, fairway woods and hybrids, irons, putter.
Or even a full bag.
Yeah, or even a full bag. You can do any parts of the bag that you want. And we have you bring in your clubs that you're currently playing. And we spec those out so we see what you're playing to get a baseline of information. And then we do, for example, like I said, with the driver fitting, we have you hit your driver, collect data, then put different heads and shafts in your hands and see what works better. If we can't improve on your driver, I'm not going to tell you to get a new one. But if I can, it's up to you then.
Yeah. And I can say I was with a fitting with Molly this past spring, and her current driver was giving her numbers that no other combination was giving her as good numbers. And I saw it happen in person. He's like, we can't do any better. That driver is for you. It is perfect. Keep going.
Yep.
So, shoot, I lost my train. So one of the biggest comments I asked all throughout Instagram, Facebook, TikTok last night, if you haven't gotten fitted for clubs, what is holding you back? And the thing that makes me cringe the most is there will be people that say they're not consistent enough yet. That answer drives me bonkers, because Kim, are you consistent? Is golf a consistent game, you think? Is there ever a consistent factor of golf?
No,
because
I
haven't
don't think
found
so.
it.
Because one day you may be hitting your driver great and everything else crappy. One day you may be hitting your irons good, putting good. I mean, I don't think, even when I've played some of my best golf, there was always something that wasn't up to 100%. But you, as Sue said, you work with what you got that day. And
well, and also, Sue, like if someone's coming in saying, well, I want to break 90 more consistently before I get fitted for clubs. Like even score-wise, being consistent, it's just not a thing in golf. Like maybe your highs and lows shift up and down,
and maybe that's why you're not consistent, because you don't have the right clubs in your hand.
Yeah.
Right. And what can happen, for example, I see a lot of ladies carrying a 3-wood, a 15-degree 3-wood. Well, a bunch of us don't have enough speed to launch the lower lofted club up in the air. Mm-hmm. So that's hurting you. And if you have a 3-wood and 5-wood and you don't have a lot of speed, chances are you're hitting the 5-wood better, because it's got more loft and it's easier to launch up in the air. So get rid of the 3-wood. You don't need it. I want a club in your bag that you hit well a significant amount of time. I don't want something, I hit that and it goes really far when I hit it right. Well, if you only hit it right 1 out of 5 times, get that club out of your bag. Mm-hmm. Put something in there. I would rather give up 5 yards and hit it 90 to 95% of the time than hit it once 10% of the time and it goes far.
Yeah.
I took my 3-wood out. I don't carry a 3-wood anymore.
Yeah.
And really, the only time that I really would even hit a 3-wood now would be if I needed it off the tee or whatever, instead of hitting a driver. But we all know that Kim doesn't like to keep her driver in the bag anyway. So,
well, and you brought up the 3-wood. The same goes for a 6-iron.
Yes.
a lot of us don't have the strength and the speed to hit a 6-iron in the air either. So maybe, a hybrid, or I don't know.
Yeah, hybrids can work better. And one of the other things you have to be careful of now is the loft of the golf clubs. Back in the old days, a pitching wedge was 48, 49 degrees. These days, you can find them at 40 and 41 degrees. Well, that's a completely different club. So today's 5-iron is like yesterday's 3-iron. So get that 5-iron out of the bag. Put a hybrid in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk to the beginner golfer. Or even, so they're either beginner golfer, they just started maybe in the past 2 years, or they're north of like a 25, 30 handicap. And they just flat out don't think that they deserve getting fitted for clubs because they're not good enough, quote unquote.
Well, in that person, you don't need 14 clubs. Mm-hmm. I would put 8 to 10 effective clubs in there, clubs that work every time. And that player also probably needs help launching the ball. So you're going to go with higher lofts, maybe a 12-degree driver for that person versus a 9-degree driver. Maybe start a 7-wood for that player and have a 30-degree hybrid and start with an 8 or 9-iron on the iron end.
And these are things that you're not getting when you just go buy a set at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Right.
That kind of customization you're not getting out of the beginner set.
Right. You walk in and say, I need clubs, and they say, here, this one's good for you. Mm-hmm. And it's you don't know. At least when you come to see me and you hit the clubs, we can see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And how about, so that same person, though, they want to get better. They just started playing. Their goal is to become better. They have the golf bug. So one of their fears might be, okay, I'm going to spend an investment on getting these fitted clubs. But what if in a year, everything has changed? What would you say to them?
Well, I would start out with a solid set that you hit well, that we know is going to work well for you. And again, you don't need 14 clubs. And then down the road, you can add, if you find there's gaps in there, you can add other clubs. Mm. And just because you have a Titleist driver doesn't mean you're going to have a Titleist iron. So you can add to piece in anywhere that there's gaps. And as you get better, maybe you started with a 9-wood and maybe now it's time for a 7-wood or a 5-wood because your skill set has gotten better, because you're better at channeling the energy during the swing. So we can put one of those in.
Is it possible to adjust the current set that they have? Meaning, so they make the investment on fitted clubs, and then in a year and a half, 2 years, they come back. Is there a thing as adjusting what they currently have, even if it's just changing out a shaft but keeping the club head?
Yes.
Does that happen?
Yes, you can do that. And also there's a lot of adjustable club heads now, particularly the driver fairway woods and hybrids. Mm-hmm. So you can increase the loft, decrease the loft. If there's gapping issues, you can modify lofts a little bit there. But yes, you can make changes.
I have a question. I just got a new hybrid. So it's on the center piece. So what do the little lines or the circle mean? Which?
If you unscrew the shaft from the head and pull it out, it'll say on the tip of the shaft what it is. For example, minus, depending on the manufacturer, might be 3/4 of a degree stronger. Plus might be 3/4 of a degree more loft added. Some companies go by 3/4 of a degree, so there's 3/4 and a half. Some companies go by a half degree. Some companies go by a full degree.
Okay, but when you turn that, one makes it so you can maybe hook it better, and the other makes it so you don't hook it as much.
Depends on the manufacturer. There's different kinds of connectors there.
This is a ping.
Okay, so anytime that you add loft, you're going to make that club more draw biased. When you take loft off, you're going to make it more fade biased.
Okay, so I would want to turn it to the left.
And
turn it to the right so it's on the...
You can also have the option on pings to make that club flatter. So that's going to affect your ball flight too. And what you ought to do is adjust it and go out and play with it on the driving range.
I tried to adjust it the other day, and I couldn't get the head off.
Oh, then there's a trick. What you do is put the head in you loosen the screw completely, put the head in your hand, tap the grip end of the club on the ground, and that sort of tends to loosen it a little bit, and then you can pull it apart.
Okay, cool. Thank
Trick
you.
of the trade. Trick of the trade.
Okay, but that reminds me. Okay, so say that situation's happening to someone at home. I mean, all those adjustments that can happen with hybrids, woods, drivers, even using that little hand crank tool that comes with a lot of these. I mean, that intimidates me. Like, I would much rather have a professional do it than like get in there and start adjusting things. I'd get too scared, like I would get too far and I wouldn't know where to come back. So do people call in and say, hey, I just want you to take a look at my clubs. I want to get the data off the TrackMan and kind of see where I'm at currently and maybe make adjustments from there? Like, is there such thing as that?
We don't do that for fitting. But what I would do is reach out to your local PGA professional, LPGA professional, because they might have a launch monitor where they're teaching lessons and stuff. We do not teach lessons. We only fit golf clubs.
Okay.
So that teacher can help you make the adjustment on the club to affect your ball flight, maybe the way that you want to.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be your answer then, your flat out answer to someone? Like when is someone ready to get fitted for clubs?
When you feel like you're not getting the results from the clubs that your swing is, you have a certain swing, and when you're not getting the results, the ball flight results that you're getting based on that swing, it's probably time to look at clubs.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine it's kind of a slippery slope because say you are hitting more of a slice, your miss is a slice, and maybe that is because your shafts are too, what would it be? Too
Stiff.
Too stiff.
Could be too stiff.
Yeah. So you're slicing the ball, and it could be that it's too stiff, the shaft, but then you start to get lessons, and they just try and like tweak it from a lesson. Like where do you go first? You think?
Well, at some point, let's go back to the driver for a second.
Yeah.
One thing to think about, drivers are typically 45 to 45 and a half inches when you get them off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a player that comes over the top out to in, the longer the driver, the more that's going to exacerbate that swing flaw.
Mm-hmm.
So think about going to a 44-inch driver, because it's going to be easier to swing from the inside. And yes, that's an inch to an inch and a quarter shorter than a conventional driver, but you're going to be able to come from the inside, hit the sweet spot, and the ball's actually going to go farther than with the longer club. So it's not just the shaft. It's the swing mechanics, too, that are involved. Anytime you're coming out to in on a swing with a closed club face, you're going to put the kind of spin on a ball where it's not going to stay down the middle of the fairway.
Yeah. I have to say, when I shortened my driver, it was a total game changer. It
Yes.
felt so much better to swing the club. I had so much more confidence, and it just felt better. It didn't feel like in the backswing it was going all over the place.
Yeah.
So when I shortened it, I don't know how long it is. Because again, I'm not really a
technical.
Yeah, like
Kinda
when
like me.
someone says like, "What kind of clubs are you playing?" I'm like, "These." Here, you look at them. I don't know. So, but that feel with that shorter driver made all the difference. And so it could be that you're using all these standard shafts from the kit that you got at a sporting goods store, and just by getting fitted and having the correct length, I mean, even that can make such a difference.
Yeah. Well, and look what happened. You shortened the driver, and then you swung the driver, and you had a good result. And then you get more internal confidence, and you swing harder and harder and harder. And your path is great now. Your face is great now. And the more confidence you have, the faster you're going to swing it, the more distance you're going to get. But the club is now short enough that you can come from the right direction and make great impact.
Yeah. And by shortening it, it does possibly affect the distance. But I mean, if you're not hitting it down the middle, or you're hitting it out of control, what difference does it make?
Yeah, if it's in the desert with the snakes, who cares?
Oof.
And typically The shorter the club, you're going to hit it more on the center of the face, and you're not necessarily going to lose any distance.
Okay, so another thing that I hear a lot in the comments is, you know, I should be playing lady shafts, or I should be playing senior shafts or men's shafts. To me, it's like, what's the difference? Like, why are they men's, ladies, seniors? It seems like they should just be shafts, you know? And when you, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean. And we don't even talk in terms of men's and ladies shafts. Yeah. We talk in terms of frequency. There's softer shafts and there's stiffer shafts. I mean, if you have a senior man who swings a driver at 65 miles an hour, he needs a softer shaft. And we don't talk ladies and men's. We get the right frequency or stiffness shaft for you and your swing. Like, you swing 1,000 miles more than me on a driver. Mm-hmm. I mean, your ball waves at mine as it's flying past mine in the fairway.
Mine too.
So you need a completely different type shaft than I do.
Yeah. But are the manufacturers even classifying these as ladies, men, seniors still?
Unfortunately, they do. But there's no industry standard. One company's regular flex shaft might be the same as another company's stiff flex shaft, might be the same as another company's A flex shaft. So there's no industry standard for it. So you can't go by the label on the shaft. You have to go by the ball flight and performance.
Why don't they just get rid of that then? Like, what purpose does it hold to say this is a ladies shaft, this is a senior shaft, this is a men's shaft?
I have no idea.
Don't you think that's weird, Kim? Like, a shaft is a shaft.
Well,
I mean,
I
it all
grew
depends
up,
on you.
You know, with ladies, seniors, and
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there must be some marketing thing to it that makes sense, because to me, it's just depends on your swing speed.
Well, and there's some companies that have gone away from that, and they have different designations on their shaft for a softer shaft versus a stiffer shaft, but they don't use LSRX. They've got something else. And so you put somebody in a shaft, and I don't care what the label says. I want to see what the ball flight's doing and what the ball's doing down the fairway.
Yeah. Wait, so that stands for ladies,
senior, regular,
stiff,
extra stiff. And then there's TX, which is tour stiff. The three of us here will never be using that.
Well, we won't even
I'll never be
it.
using a stiff shaft.
But even Kim saying that, do you think that's like, well, why do you say that? You might be hitting us. Like, it just, you don't know until you see the numbers.
Because there might be a stiff shaft that plays like a regular shaft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
and another little tidbit here, about 10 years ago, I went to one of the manufacturers because I could not find a shaft that was soft enough for some players. Mm-hmm. They just didn't have enough swing speed to get a club properly loaded. And the manufacturer said, "Are you sure you need something softer?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Here's the profile that I'm looking for in a shaft." And so this manufacturer came back to me and he said, "Well, okay, what are we going to call it?" Well, they have shafts that they designate M1, M2, M3, and M4 for their stiffness. And I said, "Well, make it be an M0." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, call it the Sumo. Sue for Sue, Mo for M0, call it Sumo." The connotation of that is that you've got power and stuff. And so he said, "Well, okay." And he designed it and built it. It's been a great shaft. And lo and behold, this year, it's in the World Long Drive Championship because it's a soft shaft that these guys can get super loaded, and it's very stable so it doesn't break. So the Sumo shaft is now in the World Long Drive Championship.
Wow. Because the goal is to have as much, what's the opposite of stiff?
Soft.
So the goal is to have the softest shaft that you can hit the most accurate. Is that the goal or no?
No, not necessarily, because everybody has a different swing. And so the energy that they load into that club head occurs in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like Kim has what I would call a very tidy swing.
at that, Kim. You're so tidy.
You have, Tori, you have a
Oh, God.
swing that is, I mean, you rip it. And you're not necessarily paying attention to where you're coming from or anything, coming back down to the club.
Yeah.
You just take a rip at it.
Okay.
And I would say I'm kind of halfway in between, although I certainly don't have the speed that you do. So everybody loads the club differently. Some people need a shaft that's a little bit stiffer down towards the tip. Somebody like me who does not easily launch a ball needs something a little softer towards the tip because that's going to flip at the bottom and help me load it up into the air. You would be in trouble if you had something that was softer in the tip. Kim, too, would be in trouble if they had something softer in the tip. For you, Tori, it would fly 100 miles up in the air. So you need something a little bit more consistent, tip to butt. You probably don't, you could get away with stiffer in the butt. Kim could not, because Kim is such a field player that if she had a shaft that was stiff up towards the grip of the club, she wouldn't be able to feel what she's looking for in her swing. So all of us need shafts with different profiles too.
Okay. Yeah, that was a lot of technical. There's so many different options.
Yes.
So when you go in for these fittings, what do you think is the average kind of, because it seems like a puzzle to me when you have, let's say, 100 different shafts to choose from and 25 different club heads. I don't know how many there are, but it seems like a puzzle. So how many different configurations, let's just use irons as an example, does it on average take for you to find one that fits them the best?
I typically will test 3 shafts, 3 heads, because if you know your equipment, when you see this person swinging and you see what their swing mechanics are, you're going to know if they need to launch it more higher or launch it lower. You're going to know if they need more spin or less spin.
Yeah.
So it's not, those of us who are working on the fitting side, it's not as much of a guess as some of the players think that it is.
Do you care if they're not hitting the ball very well? Because I'm sure people will come in and start hitting it, whether they're using their clubs and just say, "Oh, I'm not hitting it well today."
No, because there's basic mechanics that always stay the same in their swing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to change your club head speed by 10 miles an hour one day. It just doesn't happen that way. Your tempo and your speed is going to stay the same, so we can build on that.
So even if they feel like they're not hitting the ball well, it's still not a waste of time.
Exactly.
Okay.
And at a minimum, you get data that you can use going forward. And whether you choose to keep your clubs, choose to get new clubs, at least you have that information, which is a baseline that you can use. Sometimes you can use it. You could talk to your swing coach about it. But you've gathered information to help you make decisions and give you clarity.
Let's get down to cost. Oh, sorry, Kim, go ahead.
No, you just read my
Oh,
mind.
okay. Yeah, so let's get down to costs. So what's the range of how much this experience costs let's start with full bag first.
Okay.
So you want to go in, you're calling up, Cool Clubs or any other club fitter in your area and you're saying, I want to get fitted for an entire bag, which would be driver, woods, hybrids, irons, wedges, and even a putter.
Yes.
What's the range there?
It's anywhere, if you do custom shafts, it's anywhere from $5,000 to about $8,000.
Wow.
It depends.
I mean, that's an investment.
It is an investment, but if you amortize that over time and the amount of rounds that you play and the joy that it gives you, I mean, it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So what if someone just came to get information? You swing and you give them the information. How much does something like that cost?
We have fittings. So a total indoor fitting is $400, top to bottom for your club. And it takes about 4.5 hours. So we suggest you break it into a couple days because you hit a lot of golf balls. It's not like your whole bag is finished in an hour.
So, and then a lot of times, I don't know if this is what Cool Clubs does, but you can go in, you can pay the $400 to get completely fitted for clubs. But if you buy the club, sometimes that fee goes towards that.
No, we don't do that.
You don't do that?
We don't
Okay.
do that.
All right. Well, that is the case sometimes, I've seen.
Oh, no, it is.
Yeah. But if you just want to go get the fitting done, again, like Sue said, it does take a while. It's exhausting,
Yes, it is.
but it's so worth it.
It is. And, something like the putter, we use TrackMan putting. And a lot of people say, oh, I like to play a blade. Well, maybe that's not the right style putter for you. There's face balance putters and toe balance putters. And it depends on what your stroke is as to what you need. And in a putter fitting, which are critical, we figure out the loft, the lie, the length, and the style of putter that you need. And with TrackMan putting, there's also video. So you discover things that you had no idea that you did as a player when you see this video and see what the club is doing and what you're doing when you're swinging.
Yeah.
So that's a valuable fitting too. Don't just blow off the putter part of the bag.
No, it's so important. And even when I'm like looking at a video of myself putting, I notice the heel of a club is off the ground a little bit.
Right.
And I could go in really to cool clubs and say, okay, we want to adjust that so that it doesn't, because my natural stance probably lifts the heel up a little bit.
Right. And we could bend the putter to work better for you. And also we'd be able to figure out maybe you're standing too close and your eyes are past the ball. Maybe you need to back up a couple inches. And that's automatically going to bring that heel back down.
Yeah. What, Kim?
I do care about this game, but if I really,
You do care.
if I really were smart, I did get fitted for my ping irons that I got, but the problem with ping is that you can't, they go by that color code as far as whether they're flat or upright, and they don't have anything really. I need more than 2 degrees flat typically, and you can't really bend them.
Depends on the manufacturer. And ping, every company has their method of fitting. And it depends on the manufacturer. There are some clubs that cannot be bent very much. There's other clubs that you can bend more than others. So sometimes you're better off with a forged club because you're going to be able to bend that a little bit more.
Right. I know.
Kim, didn't you have a story about Pat?
Well, you just have to. Pat is a person that is tall, but has very short arms. So women's clubs aren't long enough for her. So when she went in to be fitted, she said, I need men's clubs because of this, and that. And that was even told to her by a pro and stuff. And then the fitter, sometimes these, I'm going to say men, as a woman, you go in there, you just have to be careful because they just assume that because you're a woman, you need a softer flex, not as stiff and blah, blah, blah. And they actually fitted her into women's clubs, and she said, no, that's not.
Do you know if she might have needed that flex or that softness, but maybe they made them longer so that they would fit her because she has shorter arms? If she has shorter arms, she's going to need a longer club. So maybe she needed that particular flex, but maybe they built them longer.
Oh, well, we don't know that.
Yeah.
That's why you come see me.
And they didn't, they don't really say that.
How about, Sue, if someone's on a budget? Is there such thing as getting something decent on a budget?
Yeah, what we do is we give you options. We have a good, better, best option. And a good option, we look up and see what the manufacturer has and what shaft we believe will be closest to what we spec for you that's custom. And there's different price points. Good is a stock option. Better is a good option for you that might be cost less than the best, because there's some shafts out there. There's a very popular shaft out there that you'll see a lot of LPGA and PGA Tour players playing. It's a $450 driver shaft. And for some people that makes a lot of sense. But I don't need a shaft like that.
Yeah.
I don't have enough swing speed. So the shaft that I have is a lot less expensive than that.
Yeah. And possibly you're going in for a full bag, you get a price tag and it's really expensive. You can say, okay, what part of the bag will help me the most right immediately? So maybe getting your iron switched out is the best thing for you to do right away because your hybrids and woods are working fairly well right now. Is that
Yes,
that be
that's definitely an option. You can do all the parts and pieces that you want. You can do 1 or you can do 14.
Yeah.
Whichever you'd like. We just want you to play better golf. We want you to love the game even more.
And having clubs fitted to you will help you have more fun because you will be hitting the ball better because you're using clubs that are made for you.
Yes.
You and your swing.
Yes.
Okay, so then the amount of numbers that the TrackMan is tracking throughout your fitting, I mean, it's endless. I right here see 12 to 13, maybe even 14 different stats that you guys are measuring while you're getting fitted.
Yes.
What are the top 3 as an amateur golfer, as someone that's not a super gear numbers person? What are the top 3 stats that knowing them will really help your game?
I would say land angle, club head speed, and ball speed.
And explain what each of those are and why it would help us if we knew it.
So land angle is the angle of the balls coming back down to the fairway. For example, with the driver, you want it to land at 30 to 35 degrees. And there's different spin and launch angle characteristics that create different land angles. If you're coming in at less than 30 degrees with a driver, you're probably losing some carry distance. That 30 to 35 degrees, it's like a parabola. It maximizes your carry distance and your total distance for that golf club. And anytime you do that, if you have gunch to carry or something, you want to launch the ball high enough that you can get over the gunch. You don't want to have to guess if you're going to be able to carry through it if you hit it too low. If you hit it higher than that, the ball is just going to stop when it lands. So you want to maximize the total distance that you get. And one of the ways to figure that out is by land angle. And that's important on all the clubs. It's going to be a higher land angle with the irons because you want that to come in from higher and spin more and stop on the green. And you don't want, for example, I see people carrying 19-degree hybrids. Well, they hit them so low that they can't hit them into a green because it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
So add some loft so the ball goes up in the air that will then stop on the green.
And just for those of you that don't know all the terminology, gunch means shit.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I mean, I kind of figured, but gunch means shit. Is that a Colorado term?
Gunch?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, that's a Midwest term.
Is it?
I was going to say,
I've never heard. I'm
I
going to
just
use it
refer to
today
it
at some
shit.
point.
When you have to hit over the shit.
Okay, what's the next one, Sue? You said land angle, club speed. Club speed?
Club speed, yeah. So you, Tori, swing a club a lot faster than I do. So I need a shaft that loads differently than you do.
Yeah.
So that's why I need something a little bit softer in the tip because I don't have the speed and I need assistance launching it in the air. Your speed launches the ball easily. My senior speed does not launch the ball as easily. And Kim, it's very interesting. Kim's swing, if I played Kim's driver, the squirrels on the fairway would have to worry about being decapitated. Kim plays a very low lofted driver. I could put the best shaft on the planet in that for me, but there's no way I would get that up in the air. So I need more loft on my club to get that in the air. Whereas Kim's, I'd be scuttling that down the fairway all day long. So she has different swing mechanics and she can get that sucker up in the air.
Isn't that funny though? I mean, we could go down that whole rabbit hole of like why Kim has a low lofted driver but that is just an example of you could be using a low lofted driver and you don't even realize it and that thing needs to get adjusted.
Yeah, it could be hurting you in terms of distance.
And who knows? Like if you're just starting out or even if you've been in the game, I mean, it probably took me 3 years to get fitted for clubs.